speak in opposition. There he comes.
Get him here.
My name is Bill Licklider. I live at 1634 South McKinley. And from what I've seen here, I'm restoring a 1956 60-passenger school bus into a motorhome. And this ain't a piece of crap. I mean, this is going to be a nice motorhome. Now, it falls way above your 1.5 tons. But I've got 2 other buses that I've got to use to put it together. If I get a conditional use permit to store on somebody else's property, and they die, what happens then?
That's right.
Well, if you were getting a conditional use permit,
If I was getting it.
if that person did, it would, to store that bus, then it would have to be a, auto reduction recycling center, and that permit runs with the land, it does not run with the person.
So why doesn't a conditional use permit run with the land? I live in Casper, I own a home in Casper, I own 80 acres outside of town, and I'm part owner in another piece of property on Dome Lane where I restore MR2s. How's that work?
Is your property in Casper now?
I own I live in Casper.
You're restoring this bus, is it in Casper?
No, it's in the county.
Okay, let's clarify that, thank you.
Yes, I do not have any restoration going on at my home in Casper.
Okay.
But I do have in the county.
Well, I suppose if the property owner died, you'd want to get his vehicle back, wouldn't you?
I mean, if the guy dies and I'm storing it, you know, I mean, what happens?
You'd have to move it back to another piece of property.
And then get a conditional use permit from you guys to store it.
Well, we probably off transfer the car thing. I don't think we're going to be that picky.
Can't have one. No.
Well, if I gotta have
You
a
can't
first
transfer
one,
it?
If it is a
it can't
auto
transfer.
reduction recycling center, then it would go with the land, so there wouldn't need to be any reason to transfer it.
So you're saying you're not going to get a conditional use permit for a bus?
But I'm not restoring, that isn't what I'm saying. I'm saying if
Or
I had to
RV.
store my parts buses on a piece of property that somebody has a restoration or whatever, but I'm working on that bus in another place, which I'm gonna have a conditional use permit apparently for.
So it goes with the land.
But wait a minute.
Auto reduction does. Collector car does not.
Okay, but I also restore MR2 Toyotas, which fall under your 1.5 tons, barely. You know, and I've got 5 of those, but I don't have 20 acres that I've got those 5 on. I've got 3 parts cars and I'm building 2.
Okay, so what is your question, sir? So
My question is on the conditional use permits, why do we even have to have them? I thought the whole thing about cleaning up the county was to clean up the county. Why is it all centered around vehicles?
Because the people who have collector cars came in and asked us to carve out something so they could take care of their collector cars. That's why we're doing this. Other than that, those are all just junk cars. That's what the law states now. They're all junk cars.
To everybody.
To everybody. That's what the county law says.
No, state law doesn't say that.
Well, it's not state law, it's county law. County law precedes state law.
I think that's backwards.
I think we're on firm ground there.
Huh?
We're on firm ground there.
We can
You think?
You're not so
Yes.
Okay.
That's what.
Well, what I'm saying is that the cars have not caused the problem, and there's been nobody complaining about them there so far. Why is this all happening now?
That's right.
Go ahead.
Nobody's complained about my car.
I assume you want this collector car thing to fail then, is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and then you understand what happens if that fails?
Then we revert back to state law?
No, county law.
Well,
And then those cars have to be cleaned up.
You can't have it.
You can't have collector cars. No, there is no such thing as a collector car.
There's no law
That's
that
why
says it.
we're here.
You understand that?
County zoning was passed in 1972, and it said you could have.
well, see, I've had this 1956 bus before 1972.
Okay, but the county zoning law that was passed in '72, it didn't give anybody any right to have cars on their property,
did say you
unlicensed
couldn't.
inoperable vehicles. And that's why we started doing this, so that it will allow people to have their car.
But the restrictions that you're putting on them, I can't come into compliance with a 1.5 ton restriction. And now you're telling me that I've got to come in and and go to the planning and zoning and come back in front of the commissioners to get a conditional use permit for over 1.5 tons.
And you may not get it.
And I may not get it.
Or you might get it.
So where do you
May
leave me
get it.
here? Or anybody else that's got over 1.5 tons? At this point, no.
Yeah, 1.5 tons, you guys are
It is
talking
licensed. I
Buick.
mean, the title's in my name. No, I haven't put plates on it. I can't drive it.
Go, but if you put
Why
plates
am I
on it, you're,
discussing with you?
if you put plates on it, you're okay. You're in compliance.
So I can have as many as I want as long as I put plates on it.
They're licensed vehicles.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Oh, see, now there's a catch, 22.
You bet
It
your
can't
ass.
be inoperable and be licensed.
the one that you're fixing up, I think the one that you're fixing up to make good could probably be licensed, you'd be okay, but the parts one, you'd have a problem with.
I assume it runs or you wouldn't be fixing it.
Well, it runs since I put an engine in it. I mean, you don't understand, I don't think you guys understand what it means to have, to work on collector vehicles.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern that I'd like to bring up. Why should a person have to put plates on it? How long does it take to remodel this bus into a motorhome?
Well, I've been working on it for 2 years now.
Okay, so I don't know why a person should have to buy plates to have it sit so he could work on it for 2 years.
What?
So that would be,
You know, it's not like I don't have a job.
I agree with you. I don't think it's right to have to buy plates just to work on your bus for 2 years. So that means you'd have to buy plates every year for 2 years.
Well, I can tell you, there's people in this room that's worked on cars for longer than 2 years.
Hey, Jerry,
I know he has, you know.
Well, if we pass the collector car deal, other than anything above 1.5 ton, they can still work on it.
But what about the ones over 1.5 tons?
That's
The limit.
I'm sorry, we can't make everybody happy. So